Hi, my name is Jamie Lynch, and you are listening to Eating Habits, my podcast about everything restaurants. I will explore the human element of the hospitality business, and I'll talk to the who's who in restaurants, explore their stories, and hear what's on their minds in the ever-changing landscape of the food and beverage industry. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Eating Habits. We are coming to a close for the 2022 Charlotte Restaurant Week. It's been a great week at La Belle Helene and Church and Union, Charlotte. We've had some great services. Tons of new guests have come out and give our restaurants a try. The reviews look pretty good. The services have been awesome. The teams have really put out amazing food all week. I'm super proud of them. Great job, everybody. This week's episode, I'm going to catch up with a friend of mine, Chef William Dissen. He's kind of known as being the ambassador for Appalachian cuisine in North Carolina and kind of all over the Southeast. So he's got a lot to talk about. Really good guy, super involved in kind of what's going on in the culinary scene. So I hope you enjoy the show.
Hey, it's Chef William Dissen, and you're listening to Eating Habits.
Hey, what's up, Chef?
What's up, man? How you doing today?
Great. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, stoked to see you.
Yeah. I'm glad to finally get you into the hot seat.
Yeah.
You've been on my radar for a while, but I know everybody's been busy trying to get all their businesses straight after COVID and all that and figure out what's next. So I wanted to give you, wait so I kind of get the operation going before I got you in the hot seat.
Yeah, excited to be here, man. Always good to catch up.
Yeah, man. Okay, cool. Let's get started. Tell me your story. Where did are you an Appalachian kid?
Appalachian.
Oh, see?
Yeah.
Look at that. I'm from the north.
There you go.
Okay. Appalachian.
Yep, like Appalachia.
Got it. Okay, so tell me about that.
Yeah, man. It all started on a dark, stormy night. No, born and raised Charleston, West Virginia.
Charleston, West Virginia.
Yeah, capital West Virginia.
Nice.
Mountain state. Born and raised there. Grew up in the suburbs, right off a state park, and spent my youth, playing in the woods, running around being a kid. Yep.
Was all your kind of family in that area? Was it like you have grand folks there and all that? Like that was kind of like the community where you're.
Yeah, well, my mom's from rural West Virginia. My dad's from Pittsburgh.
Cool.
So he worked for a gas company, moved to Charleston in the 70s, met my mom, and the rest is history.
Cool.
So I, growing up with family, I spent my time at my grandmother's farm in rural West Virginia, and then I'd go to the big city in Pittsburgh, right, and go hang out with my family there. So it was kind of a nice dichotomy. I got to see a little bit of big city, and then got to see, the country roots and the farm roots, which I'd say, both kind of really implanted on me, like who I became as a person, as a chef.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about this farm. What kind of farm was it?
So, my mom's side, they were meager folks. They lived truly up in the holler, up in the mountains, and they had a large farm they lived on, and they lived off the land. And they didn't do it because it was like the Brooklyn hipster DIY trend, right? They did it because that's how you fed your family.
Yeah.
So they had a large garden. They had honeybees to pollinate the garden. The garden was built right off a stream so they could irrigate it. They had a canning cellar where in the summertime we'd sit there and shuck beans and shuck corn and then put it up. As a kid, I just thought, this is so boring. I just want to go play video games. I hate this. Like, where are my friends? And fast forward now, it's like what I wouldn't give for the opportunity to sit on the front porch and shuck some beans with my grandmother and listen to her stories about eating and farming and cooking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Did you guys eat together as a family? Was that like something you guys did, or is it kind of, you'd spend time with your grandma and then, your mom and dad, and then, or was it the kind of thing where you guys would get together? And
as a family, growing up, I had older sister, younger sister. Both my parents worked, and we would sit down and have family dinner every night. And it wasn't fancy high on the hog. Some nights it was, Swanson's TV dinner, right?
Sure.
But my mom cooked a fair amount also. We had a little garden we'd grow in the summer. My dad was the standard dad, and he was the grill master, right? Cooking well-done steaks. And,
yep. I'm very familiar.
Yeah. But it was, I now as a parent with 2 children, some days I'm like, I don't know how they did that.
Yeah.
I get home from work if I'm not working at night, and, to put dinner on the table for 4 people, it's like a Chopped episode. It's like, okay, I got 30 minutes. What's in the fridge?
Right.
Oh shit. Okay, here we go.
Yeah. It's funny. I do a lot of my best cooking now that way. Yeah. Like Corey and I joke about that all the time because we're so busy running around just doing what we do that like when we were going to feed ourselves, we don't have time to go to the store or whatever. We'll just open the fridge and be like, okay, what's in here? Right. Maybe I grabbed a handful of mushrooms or something from one of the restaurants. I'm like, okay, this is the base of what we're doing. Right. Open up the cupboard and it's like, here we go. And sometimes we come up with some good stuff.
Yeah, it's fun. My kids are pretty good eaters. My wife is an immigrant from India, so we eat a lot of vegetarian Indian food, which
nice.
I whine about.
Is she vegetarian?
She is. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Eats eggs, dairy, that kind of stuff. I don't know if I could ever be married to a vegan.
Yeah.
Bless their hearts.
You'd figure it out.
Yeah, I don't know. Give up cheese? I don't think I could.
Yeah, I don't think I could either.
No. It's my wife. I'll cook something. She's like, God, that was really good. You put butter in that, didn't you? And I'm like,
yeah. It's like there's no meat in it, so I have to put my butter.
Yeah,
like,
I need that. I need that, like that unctuousness.
Yeah. It's funny. I love butter. I mean, I love bread, like butter as an ingredient.
I mean, you own a French restaurant.
Yeah, like I will drink the clarified butter. I'll do shots of it. But lately at home, I've been cooking almost with no butter. I was in there looking, and I bought a pound of butter. Did a big grocery store run like probably 2 months ago, and I have the same pound of butter. I haven't opened it. And I was like, this is like, what is going on with me? Like, am I okay? Yeah. Like usually I would go through a couple pounds over the course, like through a month. And now I haven't even touched it. I've been using different oils and stuff, which has been kind of fun.
Yeah, I've definitely kind of gone down the rabbit hole, like the different EVOs and the avocado oils and all those things too.
What's your favorite olive oil?
Oh, man.
Region. You can give me a region.
Well, the best one I've ever had, there's, I don't know how much wine you like to drink, but I love Valpolicella wine.
Okay, yeah.
And there's one of the best is Giuseppe Quintarelli.
Okay.
His Valpolicellas are like, and Amarones and stuff are amazing.
Yeah.
But he's lined his entire vineyard in olive trees.
Cool.
And he does a single press of olive oil that's like...
I need to try that. What's it called?
Giuseppe Quintarelli.
Quintarelli.
Yeah. You got to hold your hand like this. Quintarelli.
Quintarelli. I'm working on it. Yeah. I'm going to write that down.
You lived in New York for a while, right?
I did. Yeah, for like 7 years. I mean, I worked for Andrew Carmelini.
Yeah, this fucking guy, huh?
Yeah. Although he was... So, yeah... That was awesome. Anyways, this is about you. I'm not going to talk about my story is well documented. I'm not talking about that. Cool. All right. So growing up in rural West Virginia, spent some time in Pittsburgh. That's cool.
Yep.
I mean, Pittsburgh, it's still pretty working class, like, but back then I think it was like hardcore steel. Like
my grandfather worked for U.S. Steel.
Mm-hmm.
Before that, my great grandfather was an immigrant from Germany. Grandmother, her family immigrant from Ireland, very Appalachia, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting, something I found during COVID is that, we had very standard, like Irish, German, Pittsburgh families. Like something happened to somebody at some point, and I have a whole side of family in Pittsburgh that I don't know because somebody did something to someone, they're like, you're dead to us.
Yeah, some feud happened.
Very, very standard, like, ethnic family in the Berg.
Yeah.
And I have I guess you call it a great aunt or great cousin that I met a few years back and lives here in North Carolina. And her husband died recently, and she was kind of downsizing her home. And right after Christmas in 2020, this box showed up on my front door. It was like the 26th of December. I'm like, oh, we already got the Christmas presents for the kids and everything's set. I'm like, what is this? Opened it, and there's this big German, handmade beer stein, and a note from my great cousin or aunt or whatever you call it. And it's like, hey, this was your grandfather's, or your great grandfather, excuse me. And she's like, this long note, like he was a chef at the Monongahela House Hotel in downtown Pittsburgh, which was one of America's great hotels. They hosted Abraham Lincoln and all these.
Wow.
And I'm like call my dad. I'm like, WTF?
Yeah. Like, is this real?
Like,
what's going on?
Why have I never heard about this? And went down this crazy rabbit hole and called my great cousin. Was like, I need to know all of this. And she's like, your German side of your dad's family is from the Osnabrück area of Germany, and they were in the hospitality industry there for centuries.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like,
so it's in your blood, huh?
I'm like, but I'm in my 40s now.
Yeah.
And I had
no idea.
Never heard about this. And it was like, mind blown.
Yeah, that's interesting.
You know, so it was like, you know, it was one of those moments where I was like, okay, I'm doing the work I should be doing.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. What an awesome validation that you kind of went down the right path. Right?
Well, and even cooler, about 2 months ago, my first cousin, she, I guess, was going through some stuff, downsizing from her mother who'd passed away. And there was stuff from my great-grandfather they had, and she had this silver spoon from the Monongahela House Hotel that was his personal tasting spoon.
No
that
way.
He carried in his pocket with him.
That's cool.
And sent it to me, and I was like, okay, this is pretty rad.
Yeah. So what did you do with that stuff? Where?
You know, I mean, it's
somewhere. Did you have it like boxed up somewhere? Or
yeah,
like?
you know, the spoon. I think at some point I'm gonna have like mounted and framed, and you know,
have it be like some sort of
it keeps
cool. Yeah,
you know,
cool.
Half of me is like, oh, I should carry it with me, but I'm like,
I'll lose it. Yeah, I would lose
I
that
would
in a
lose it.
heartbeat. Yeah,
yeah,
that's so cool, man. Awesome.
it was pretty interesting. And then, you know, so then like on my mom's side, you know, they're a farming family.
Yep.
Right. And my grandmother was, you know, amazing country cook. I just remember how like delicious her food always tasted, which is funny because on my dad's side, like, I guess my great grandfather was an amazing chef, but like I haven't met very many other people in the family that cook well.
Right.
My grandmother, bless her heart, was, you know, burnt everything.
Yes.
Yeah. But on my mom's side, the food was always great. Country cooking, biscuits, gravy, you know, pickled, canned everything, slow cooked beans.
What was their approach? I mean, obviously they grew a lot of food, right? And it was mostly vegetable gardens, like things like that. Did they do meat at all?
They
do like
they would raise chickens and
yeah.
things. They hunted a lot. You know, I have some very vivid memories. My uncles going out on Thanksgiving to kill a buck. And then, you know, having me taking pictures with the old school Polaroid.
Yeah.
Know, while they're skinning it, you know, 6-year-old little Billy was like, "Oh my God!"
So did you guys do venison for Thanksgiving and stuff, or did you?
So they'd cook that up also.
Cool.
You know, my grandfather was old. He was a coal miner, had black lung, very West Virginia story.
Yep.
You know, got his pension and was retired and lived on the farm too. And you know, he'd take me out and we'd go, you know, hiking through the woods, and he'd pick mushrooms and ramps and pull ginseng. And I thought, as a kid, I'm like, well, this guy's crazy.
Yeah. What's
like,
up with this old,
like
this crazy old
you're
guy?
eating that out of the woods.
Yeah.
Like
That's a stick that was underground.
it's scary.
Yeah.
Right? Fast forward, right? I'm like a foraging freak.
Yeah. Now you're like looking for all that stuff, like driving down. You're like, hey, you see that over there on the side of the road?
You know, and it's, you know, those childhood experiences, right? The environmental experience really, I think, implants on you, right? It imprints.
I'm a little jealous with your story because I love the fact that, you know, because this has definitely come full circle for you, right? Like, I think present day, you are kind of like a poster child for sustainable, local, farm to table type cooking, and so that makes total sense, right? That's you know, my folks couldn't, like, they didn't cook, like, you know, they were a product of the 50s. You know, everything came in a box, shake and bake, like
right.
that. Like that was
hey,
my.
Don't front on some shake and bake, man.
No, I'm not. So my approach now to food, and it's funny how, like, that's kind of how it works, right? Is like your food memories and stuff shape how we approach what we do today. You know, because a lot of my cooking is like retweaking things that are familiar from my, you know, from my youth, like shake and bake. Like, how do I do a fried chicken?
You're telling your story, right?
Yeah, exactly. But it also, you know, because of that experience for me, that caused a lot of curiosity as to, like, okay, well, you know, I ended up doing the farm thing because I didn't have that experience. You know, I met all these amazing farmers and was like, holy shit, like, this food is better, right? When I first started tasting really local stuff from the area where I was cooking it, you know, like fresh out of the ground, it really changed my approach to food, right? Like, coming from New York, it was always about how do we do the coolest, like, you know, the upscale restaurants, like how do you outdo all the other chefs, be more creative, come up with cooler techniques, you know, cooler dishes and all that, which is all great. But when I started to meet the farmers down here, and just the product was so much better than what we were using, and you didn't have to do as much to it to extract the flavor or to highlight the flavor and stuff.
I would say, I think for me, that was exactly to that point, is that, you know, I think in our era, we all went through that modernist approach to cooking. You know, I don't know how many fucking gels and foams and
powders and
meat glue. I've glued different species of fish together. Gross. Right?
Yeah. It looks cool.
We had a tasting menu when I opened the marketplace, and I remember I had this trio of rabbit on the menu, and I was Frenching out racks of rabbit.
Yeah.
Stupid.
Yeah.
I mean, hours doing that.
It's great for a photo.
It was beautiful. I look at it and be like, oh my God, my work here's done.
Yeah.
Right.
I've got 5 orders to sell tonight, guys. It took me 6 hours. I've got 5 orders.
Right. But I think as I started to learn about where food comes from and have that kind of aha moment with a connectivity back to my upbringing and my grandparents, I had this connection where remember being in culinary school at CIA in New York. And I'm not gonna try the French accent, but this French chef there was like, if you want to be the best chef, you have to use the best ingredients. Mm-hmm. And at the time, I think for him, it was foie gras and caviar and truffles and wild mushrooms and things like that, right?
Yep.
I had this aha moment and was like reminiscing back to my grandmother's farm and just thinking how delicious the food was, and I was like, why, right? And I think as chefs, that's something, great chefs, that's something that we focus on a lot. It's like we question everything. I was that annoying kid. Why, mm-hmm. right? But it's because I wanted to learn, and I think I'm constantly on that, on the move to learn more. But with this moment, this connection, it was like, why does the food taste better, and how can I make it taste better? And for me, it was like, I want it as fresh as possible.
Yeah.
I remember in culinary school, I took a wine class, and they started talking about Brix level in
mm-hmm.
grapes, right? So as a vintner, they take their, what's the thing called, a mass spectrometer, right? And they take the grape as it's approaching its ripeness, and they test it for the sugar content. And when the sugar content's right, they say, okay, guys, time to harvest, right? But because, the higher the sugar content and the riper the grape, the better wine you're going to make, right? It's going to have better flavor, ferment to better alcohol, et cetera, et cetera. But there's a Brix level in all fruits and vegetables, right? And so, I think a good example I use all the time, cliche as hell, but it's a tomato, mm-hmm. right? It's end of July right now. Would you rather eat a tomato in January or one at the end of July?
I don't eat raw tomatoes unless it's the summertime.
Right.
Corey can attest to that. I will not eat a tomato until it's summertime.
But so we were talking about being down Johns Island in Charleston.
Yep.
You probably eaten a Johns Island tomato in the middle of summer.
Yep.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Right. Like it's like eating a South Carolina peach. When it's ripe, you bite into it, and you got to have a napkin to wipe your chin.
Yeah. There's no mealy texture. There's no wateriness. It's very sweet, full. I mean, you get the acidity. They're really good.
Yeah, it's like when something's ripe, it's bright in color. Mm-hmm. It's heavy for its size because it's full of natural sugars, right?
Yep.
And juicy. It's the flesh is firm, right?
When did you start becoming aware of that stuff? Like, when did you start thinking about that consciously in your cooking? Like saying, hey, okay, like exploring. I don't cook with tomatoes in the winter. They don't belong there to me. That started for me after I moved to Charlotte and I met Sammy. Like, that's kind of where I was like, wait a minute, why would I put tomatoes in a tomato sauce in the middle of winter unless we've canned them, right? Like, I'm not going to take these tomatoes from the grocery store and try to make a sauce with that. It's not going to work. It's not going to be good.
Exactly.
I can add more wine. I can add sugar. I can manipulate this to get something close to what I want.
It's not the same though.
But that's different.
Yeah.
And I think your cooking speaks to that. You're really trying to highlight the ingredients that you're cooking with. And those ingredients are Appalachian.
Appalachian.
Yeah. Nice. I will get it. I will get it by the end of this.
Yeah. It's part of my life's work. So.
Yeah. And I want to talk about that because you have become that kind of the spokesperson for that in North Carolina, at least.
Sure.
I know Sean Brock does a lot of promotion of that and kind of really helped bring it to the forefront, a few years ago. But you're definitely carrying the torch right now, for sure.
Sure. But yeah, but back to the food thing and the flavor. I feel like as chefs, we're flavor chasers,
mm-hmm.
right? We want to find the best ingredients to make the most delicious food. Because at the end of the day, that how do we keep our food on our own tables at home?
Mm-hmm.
Because we have to make delicious food consistently for our guests. And when we can do that, do it at a high level, people go, damn, this is good. I'm going to come back again. I'm going to tell all my friends. Mm-hmm. But, I'd say back to those food memories of when did it click and that light bulb go off? Certainly different memories throughout my life, but I was doing an internship in California, and I was at this really bougie place called the San Ysidro Ranch. It's up in the hills in Montecito. I had to sign non-disclosure agreements because of the fancy LA celebrities that came there. Mm-hmm. But it had an organic garden and orchard on the premise. And I remember just the seafood coming in right off the coast, and the fresh produce and the fresh citrus and things we used. One day I remember going to the walk-in cooler looking for thyme to use for this brassage I was making, right? And I was like, Chef, where's the thyme? And he said, Chef, there's a back door, there's some garden scissors, there's a basket, go get it yourself.
Yeah.
And I was kind of like, fuck you. Right?
You're like, what?
Yeah. But then I walked out the door, cut my own thyme, went and put it into the brassage I was making, and I was like...
Saw the laurel tree with the bay leaves over here. You're like, oh, wait a minute.
Right. And it's like that moment for me was like, the synapses started firing, and I was like, oh, okay, this is good. Mm-hmm. And then, back to the culinary school moment with this French culinary instructor, right? Like, the best ingredients make the best chef. And so I think for me, as my culinary journey started moving forward, it was like, I started working in different places, and we certainly had the big box truck folks roll up and, cut the bag open. You put enough salt and pepper and acid and butter into it, I can make it taste good.
Yep.
But when you have that moment of fresh from the garden, it's like, that's the chef I want to be. That's the integrity I want to have, and the flavor I want to put into my food, where things are so fresh, you have this flavor explosion, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't need to manipulate it much.
Right.
Right. I don't need the pomp and circumstance on the plate. Just let me try to manipulate this enough, season it gently, put it on the plate, and you eat it and you go, holy shit. Mm-hmm. Changed my life.
One of my favorite things to do these days, because is I do a lot of training with my cooks and stuff, and I was an entremetier for most of my time in New York, and so it's veg cooking,
right?
And so I'm all about vegetables, all about cooking them properly, and so and it's funny how most line cooks can't cook a vegetable. Like, if you get a good line cook, they know how to blanch properly. Right? You're like, oh, good for you. Like, wow, good for you. But they don't know how to glaze a vegetable. They don't know how to manipulate vegetables to really accentuate the raw product. And that's something I really enjoy doing, because when you see them get a bite of a carrot, it isn't blanched, right? But you've captured all the essence of a carrot, and when they bite it, and you can just see it in their eyes, right? They're like, whoa, like that moment, that's what I like, right? Because then now you've got a connection. They're like, oh shit, I just realized now that I haven't been doing it right.
That's something so much on our opening menu here in Charlotte at Haymaker. My favorite dish that I've ever done at Haymaker was a carrot side dish. Yeah, we took baby carrots from Boy and Girl Farm, juiced them, cooked them sous vide in carrot juice. We took carrot juice and made carrot vinegar, mm-hmm. and then a la minute, put the sous vide baby carrots into the hearth, char them off, carrot juice, carrot vinegar, butter, and glazed them. Yep. Carrot on carrot on carrot. Yeah. And we took the carrot tops and we made powder out of it. We made like a bene seed, sumac, za'atar, and a little bit of like preserved lemon yogurt. Yeah. Sounds awesome. Simple dish in terms of plating, right? But right. I had people. But what you just described to our listeners, they're like, wait a minute. That's not simple. Yeah. Powder? What? Oh, how'd we get to that? But, people would eat it and say, Chef, I hate carrots. Right. And that was like the best carrot dish I've had in my whole life. Yep. And to me, it was like, okay, winning. Yeah. But then, then as it's like the rabbit trio was talking about before, right? It was also one of those dishes like, is this necessary? Right. Am I taking, an $8 side dish that is taking half the day to cook? Yep. Right. I don't know. Sometimes yes, sometimes no, right? Right. It depends on what you're trying, what are you trying to achieve? What is, we always refer to it as our cooking voice, right? It's like, so what are you trying, what story are you trying to tell with this dish? And is your approach going to tell that story? If it's the story of the carrot, well then yeah,
right? If the dish is all about a carrot, then maybe you do have to do that. Maybe you don't. Like maybe all you got to do is glaze that carrot perfectly with a high quality butter, and you're good.
For sure, and we certainly do that too. But I think that's the fun thing about being a chef,
right? That's the creative part.
Sometimes you need to dive down that rabbit hole, so you can pull it back a little bit.
Sure.
You know, it's like, let's say if you want to be an expert at something, you have to do something 10,000 times, right?
Yep.
You know, I don't know if we want to go down that road into like, you know, line cooking and where people are, but that's something I try to coach my team on. I said, look, like, I get it. You're out of culinary school. You apprenticed at whatever place. That's great. But you've only been cooking for like a couple of years.
Right.
You know, how many times have you done something?
I'm struggling with that in my world right now, because everybody, like, the whole social media world has created this culture of like wanting things immediately. I'm an impatient person.
Yeah,
like
same.
that's why I don't do pastry. Like, you know what I mean?
Right.
Because I need like results. You know, I need to be in it and have things happen. But you know, I mean, I didn't get my first chef gig until I was in like my late 20s, maybe almost 30. You know, and that was in a supporting role as a chef, where we've got, you know, there's people today, they're like, you get out of school and they're 22 and they want to be, you know, a CDC or whatever. I'm like, you don't know anything. Like, you've learned a bunch of stuff at school, but that doesn't give you any sort of expertise or experience to lead a team. You know, leadership, chefing is leadership. It's not about how good the dish is you put on the plate at all. And that's my approach. What do you think about that?
I mean, I would say cooking is probably the easy part, right?
It's the fun part.
It's the fun part,
Yeah.
You know, but the leadership, the finance, the marketing, all those things, like that's the tough part.
That's what being a chef is.
For sure. I mean,
like being able to put those things together well, I think, is what being a chef is.
Well, and that was part of my journey too, right? Is that I had worked at some great places, been all around the country, educating myself, and ended up leaving Culinary Institute of America. You know, and got brainwashed there, like ACF stuff, right?
Yeah.
Your next step is go to the Greenbrier.
Right.
You know, I went there to work under CMC Peter Timmons and do their apprentice program. And it was wonderful, but it was like, that's something when I talk to young cooks coming out of school, they're like, what should I do? Should I go work for Chef Jamie, right, and check out his amazing cuisine? Or should I go, you know, into a bigger institutional place? For me, the Greenbrier, it was crazy. It was like boot camp.
Yeah.
But the one thing that I really got from it is it got my reps up real fast. You know, in my restaurant, you know, if you're lucky, you'll cook a few hundred steaks in a week, right?
Right.
You know, at the Greenbrier, you may cook 500 steaks in a day.
Right.
You know.
Yep.
So like it's shit to get off the pot.
Yeah.
You know, and you have somebody in your face saying, "Let's go, chef. Let's go."
Yeah.
And that was certainly a different era. But I left there and I was like proficient in vegetable cookery and meat cookery and temperatures and seafood, because not necessarily because I was great at it, just because I had done it 10,000 times.
So many times, the repetition.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, my chef, I remember, I still idolize this chef, Michel Leborgne. He was a master chef of France, was our culinary director for New England Culinary Institute is where I went. And he was, you know, he wasn't he did do some classes, like he taught some classes in, he was probably in his maybe late 50s, I think, when I was in school. And, you know, he would go around and talk to everybody, thick accent. He was a very personable guy, like definitely a character, right? Like this guy was a total character. But he knew everyone. I mean, he knew Danielle. He knew Paul Bocuse. He was a master chef of France. He knew everybody. And it was time we had to do 2 internships for school. And I couldn't figure out where I wanted to go, what I wanted to do. I didn't know. I was just like so like amped up about food and so green, you know, that and he saw that in my classes. Like I was the guy that was like running around in class. Like we had a 7-to-1 student ratio, so it was like real time in the kitchen. You're not like in a lecture hall theorizing. You're like in the kitchen doing stuff. And so he noticed that in me early on. I was like, okay, this one's going to be a project for me, basically. And so he placed me at Aqua in San Francisco with Michael Mina.
Wow.
He was like, all right, cool. Michael Mina, American chef. He was, at that point, he was building his reputation as the chef at Aqua. 4 stars. That place got rocked. I mean, we were doing 450, 500 covers a night. I went in there,
at a very high level.
At a very high level. And I went in there and got my ass kicked. Like, just turned inside out, put back together. And when I came out of there, I was a machine,
And that was the Greenbrier for me. I mean, I have a very vivid moment there. I was on the entremet station for the day. They kind of rotate you through in the apprentice program, and I tell people about this and they don't believe me, but the line for the main dining room kitchen is over 30 yards long.
Yeah. Wow.
And back when I worked there, room and board were part of the daily rate. And they used to have this analog scoreboard across from the line, and they had like a call booth. It's like almost like for the old school taxi companies.
Yeah.
Like the glassed in call booth. The servers would run up and say, here's my order for table 2. Right. And then each station on the line was a different dish on the menu. I remember being on the beef tornado dish one night, and it went from 0 to 300 in 30 seconds.
You're like, oh shit!
And then servers are running by giving verbal temps.
Yeah, 6
mid rare, 2 mid well, 5 well. And you're like
head spinning. You're just like, whoa. Yeah.
But they, and that was one example. But another thing on Entremet Station one day, they did these gold dinners there where gold plates, silverware. It was very fancy.
Yep.
Remember the old school Thumbelina carrots?
Oh yeah.
Right.
I love those things,
love
man.
them. So I had
my cooks hate them.
They hate them.
They're like try to peel them. They're like, how do I peel this carrot? It's round.
Right. And so I had to peel like 4 bushels of them.
Yeah.
And I'd gone through and I was finishing them up, and the chef de partie came by for Entremet, and he was like, "Chef, you forgot to peel the stem. Get back at it."
Yeah.
I spent all day peeling these fucking carrots.
Yep.
Literally got a tourne knife and had to go through, like hands cramping. Yep. They were orange for like a week.
Right.
But you know what? I can fucking peel a Thumbelina carrot better than anybody now.
Yeah. So I joke about this all the time. Like, so when I was on Top Chef, on both seasons that I was on, the mise en place relay was part of one of the challenges that I was in. And that was like, when I saw that challenge, the first time I did it, I didn't know what it was. But when they explained it, I was like, fuck yeah. I was like, this is my shit.
Yeah.
Like, you're talking prep, that's my jam.
Right.
You want me to tornado artichokes?
Sure.
Fuck yeah, dude. I'm all over it. Everybody else, all the other chefs are like, tornado artichoke, right? Like, I thought those came in a can. Yeah, I was like, boom, I banged them out in like no time. They're just like, oh shit. You know?
Man.
Yeah, so, and I love all that, like, those skills, right? Like those knife skills. But how much of that do you guys use these days in your kitchens, in your cooking? Do you guys tournay? Do you do any of that stuff?
Occasionally.
Yeah.
Right. Usually if it's I come in the kitchen and mess everybody up for the day, and I'm like, oh, we're gonna run this special with tornado sunchokes and whatever, and they're like, are you serious?
Yeah.
I'm like, let's go.
Gotta learn it sometime.
Yeah. No, but I mean, I would say knife cuts are important.
Yeah.
But as I mentioned earlier, I've kind of gotten away from trios of rabbit, right, and more into like rustic refined. Like let's spend time and make a beautiful sauce, right, and properly cook our vegetables. Use a cartouche, right, to when we're making things like collard greens, right, so they cook properly. And let's make sure we season our food, and then we extrapolate and go, what does it need, right? Like, we're not just cogs in the wheel. We're not just line cook monkeys, right? We are professional chefs and smart human beings, and that's the kind of culture that I really try to cultivate in our kitchens. Is like, to me, I can write a menu and it's a good menu, right? But when I collaborate with my team and we talk about it and we taste it and we give each other feedback, it goes from a good menu to a great menu.
Yeah. And
to me, that's also the really important part of a professional kitchen, because at the end of the day, we're sitting here in a room, you and I have somewhat similar backgrounds, right? But we're also from different places. There are probably things that we mutually think are delicious, but other things we're probably like, that's trash. And that's also cooking, right? Like, we're cooking for a community of people that come from everywhere, diverse background. They don't have the same backgrounds as you or I.
Right.
So we have to make sure that we can create food that touches all parts of the tongue, that is stimulating to them, and they eat it and go, it's delicious. And it's, if you're from, Spokane, Washington, or you're from New York City, or you're from Charleston, West Virginia, all those people go, man, that's delicious.
Yeah.
Right. That's,
That's the dream. That's the goal.
That's the dream. Right.
How efficient do you feel at that you're achieving that? How do you feel about your performance?
I'd say
if you had to look back at like what you got going on right now. So you've got three restaurants.
3 restaurants, a few more on the way.
Okay.
Yep.
So how do you feel like you're faring in your goal to bang people in the mouth with flavor?
I think we're doing pretty well.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think we're doing pretty well.
Good.
Marketplace, I'm almost 14 years in now. Haymaker, Billy D's Fried Chicken, about 5 years in.
So let's talk about some of that. Let's talk about, we talked a little bit about kind of like coming up and learning those skills and how that kind of shaped what you're doing now. Talk about that transition, like when you bought Marketplace. Like what was the goal there? What was your mission at that point? How was that experience? I mean, shit, I think back to when I opened Five Church and it just gives me like anxiety big time. Like I knew, and I realize now too, like I look back and that the humbleness of like being like, I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. Like I look at what I'm doing now and I still don't think I know what I'm doing. Like I have a lot more experience, but I'm like, I don't know.
Like I mentioned, I went back, I got burnt out cooking in Charleston. And I was killing myself. One of the restaurants I worked at before I moved to Asheville, I was commuting 40 minutes each way. And there were nights where I was getting out of the kitchen, finishing cleaning the floors at 1 a.m. And I had to be back at 8.
Yeah.
And I'm like, 40-minute drive each way. I'm just going to go sleep in the booth and, take a line cook shower, right? And it just was burnout. And so I went to grad school and I thought, man, I'm just going to go get this corporate job and, 9 to 5, Volvo, white picket fence, 2.5 kids and fade to black. And, here I am now.
Yeah.
And so, I think I was doing these things and I got to a point where I was like, I think we all have to go on a vision quest at some point. I don't want to get on a tangent too far from the storytelling, but I'm a short white dude. I love basketball. And I sucked at it when I was younger. And my goal was like, I want to be able to dunk a basketball. I want to be able to, make the starting 5 on my high school team. And I had a guy one day at basketball camp. He said, you have to go on a vision quest. He said, your jumper sucks.
Right? Yeah.
And I'm like,
it just is what it is.
No shit.
Yeah.
And he's like, look, your mechanics are off. Let me help you with your mechanics. But he said, beyond that, you have to be able to envision the ball going through the hoop. And he said, I'm not talking about thinking, I'm going to shoot the basketball. He said, I'm talking about like you're envisioning keeping your elbow in, right? You snap your wrist. You're watching the ball spin in the air. You watch it go through the rim and swish through the net. When you can do that, you're creating a mechanism in your brain that allows you to perform that way, right? Can you perform that way every time? He said, yeah, if you're on your shit.
Yeah.
Right.
If you're Kobe or
right. But in what does it take to get there? It takes a shitload of practice. Like I said, back to the 10,000 times, right?
Yep.
And a lot of hard work to get there. It doesn't just come for free. At least didn't for me.
Right.
But the same thing, like with my career, it was like I got to a point where I was just really clouded and like, what am I doing with my life? And I think that happens to a lot of cooks.
Yeah.
Right. You're sweating to the oldies every day, and it's like Groundhog Day. And it's like, man, what can I do to get out of this hole? And for me, it was like, you know what? I need to do this for myself. And I went down the path of figuring out, okay, how do I write a business plan? Right? How do I get funding together? How do I deal with real estate development? All things I had no clue about. And it was literally learning under fire.
Yeah.
But I knew I'd come to a point in my vision quest that I needed to do that for myself.
Yeah. Did this start to happen in Charleston before you relocated, or did this happen? Were you like, I'm getting out of Charleston because I'm burnt. I need to like separate from this, Groundhog Day, and then you started to say, okay, it started to clarify what your direction had to be. I need to learn this. I have to, get familiar with this,
Well, I'd gone to University of South Carolina, have a master's in international hospitality and tourism management, kind of like MBA for hospitality.
Yep.
And again, that was where I was like, I'm going to go work for some food company and clock in, clock out.
Right.
Yeah. I'll get a gold watch and fade to black.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Get my paycheck.
Right. Yeah, man. And as I started going down that path, I was like, that is not me. Right. Like,
yeah.
I
did you start down that path?
I did.
And you said, hey, whoa,
Yeah.
pump the brakes.
Yeah, man.
This is not going to get me where I need to be.
That was exactly what happened.
Okay.
And I said, look, like, I need to do it for myself.
Yeah.
So I saved some money up, borrowed money from family, got loans, did all that, and was like, all right, son, roll the dice. Here we go.
How was your family feeling about contributing to a restaurant venture? Knowing it, first of all, did they know that restaurants typically fail?
My family, they probably still think I'm crazy as shit. But like when I went to culinary school, they were like, what are you doing?
Yeah, why?
Yeah, I have an undergrad degree in English and French.
Okay.
The French kind of got me more into the food scene.
Yep.
But then I applied to culinary school, and they were like, what? Like, son, you need to go to law school. Like, go get the job, get the gold watch, and retire.
Yeah.
And I did, and they were like, you're out of your mind.
Yeah.
And it was right, like, when I went to culinary school, was not Food Network and all that had not blown up yet.
Right.
Anthony Bourdain had just put his book out, right?
Yep.
Family was reading it, they're like, oh my God, is it drugs and sex? And,
yeah.
and I'm like, yeah.
Yeah.
And so it was like, it was interesting. It was an interesting path with the family, but I think, fast forward now, they're like, things are going much better. Mm-hmm. So I think they're definitely proud of the journey.
Yeah.
But, I think the thing I've tried to talk to them about is life doesn't have to be a calculated path. Mm-hmm. We all have different pathways. We all get to that crossroads. We get to the point of like, what? I know I'm supposed to take this left turn, but I want to go right instead.
Mm-hmm.
And it might be a bumpy road, right?
Yeah.
But if I'm a hard worker and I'm focused and I have this vision, like, things are achievable.
Yeah.
Right. But you have to be dedicated to that. It doesn't just come for free.
Right. 100%. When you decided to do it for yourself, right? Say, I got to have my own place. It's the only way. I'm not going to be happy going down this road. What at that point, like when you kind of settled on, how did you settle on marketplace first off, and then like what was your vision for what you were going to do with that? Like what was that going to achieve for you? Marketplace.
Sure. So, so I was looking at different demographics around the country. I lived in Santa Barbara. I lived in New York. I lived in Charleston, South Carolina, and some other places. And I was like, I want to live somewhere where I love the outdoors. I like free fun. I like to go out and play and exercise and, swim in the ocean, jump off a waterfall in the mountains, go fishing, all these things, right? So like I need to live somewhere where I can play also. And I looked at Santa Barbara where I lived before, and I was like, yeah, that's not going to work.
Yeah.
I don't have that kind of money. Charleston had also started to pop off at the time, and I was like, yeah, I don't have that money either.
Yep.
I came the Lake Eden Arts Festival in Asheville. I went up with some friends from Charleston, and we went and saw Michael Franti play an acoustic set.
Cool.
Maybe it was the wine or something in the air. I don't know. But I was like, man, Asheville's the shit.
It's probably something in the air.
Yeah, maybe something there. I don't know. Good vibes only.
Yeah.
And so I remember we'd stopped to get some beer at a local grocery store. And as I walked in, there was the stand of, printed magazines that said local food guide. I was like, well, that's pretty rad. And I opened it up and flipping through, and it's the Appalachian Sustainable Agriculture Project. It was this amazing organization that creates a local food movement, right? Getting local food institutions, schools, restaurants, etc. They have this food guide that lists all the farmers, lists what's in season, everyone's name, resources, etc. And I'm like, this is amazing. Like, this is doing all the hard work for me. Like, I don't have to go out
and network and find it.
I found it all right here. Yeah. And then went and saw Michael Franti play, and I was like, bro, this is it.
Yeah. I found my calling, bro.
And so I got with the realtor, and we started looking at places, and fortuitously the marketplace had come on the market. At the time it was 30 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh my God, like, okay, this is meant to be.
Yeah.
So went down that path. It's funny, at the time though, I met a girl who's now my wife, and was literally just about to buy the marketplace, and she had been living here in Charlotte, ironically, as a consultant, and quit her job and was like, I'm going to move to Hanoi, Vietnam, to go work in climate change science for the Clinton Foundation. And so I would like put the deal on hold for a little bit and went and spent some time in Southeast Asia.
Oh, cool.
Which was amazing. That's maybe a story for another podcast.
Yeah. We might have to follow up. I'd love to hear about that.
It was pretty epic.
Yeah.
And so I came back from there. Place was still in the market.
How long were you there? How long did you head over there for?
A couple months.
Okay.
Yep.
You guys weren't married at this point, were you?
No.
Okay, you were just infatuated.
I was chasing the girl.
Yeah, you were like, I'll go where you go.
Yeah. The story is my charm and charisma was so much she couldn't control herself.
Right.
Yeah. She said I wouldn't leave her alone. You know. We meet somewhere in the middle.
Yeah. Okay. Got it.
But so came back and pursued the deal, got the money in place, and went through the grind and bought the marketplace September 1st of 2009, right in the middle of the recession.
Yeah, that's a great time to be.
Oh, fuck.
Getting started.
No. And
but I mean, you probably got a pretty decent deal on the space because of that.
I got a good deal on it, and frankly, the chef and owner, a guy named Mark Rosenstein, who founded the marketplace, he was in his 60s, and he was like, I'm out.
Yeah.
I hope that some young, as they say where I'm from, some young whippersnapper comes along years from now and says, William, I want to buy your restaurant. I'll be like,
yeah.
So where do I sign?
Yeah. Please. Please do. And please take the headaches with you.
Right. But so bought it September 1 of 2009 and came in, and it was, white tablecloth, fine dining, chamber music, holier than thou mentality, right? Tasting menus, all that. Still very hyper sustainable farm to table. But it was a turn on for me because that was my up and coming, was in that old school, like 5-star fine dining, white tablecloth. But then the recession just blasted us. That winter it snowed every weekend. We'd have 100 covers on, and I watch, as the snow accumulated, reservations dropped off, and it'd be like, we'd be dead during the week. And then, it was like, all right, we're going to do a few hundred covers in the weekend. We're going to pay the bills.
Right.
The budget works out. Then we'd have to close Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah. Because too much snow. Nobody's coming out.
You're like, I'm so fucked.
Are we going to make the month? Like, oh God.
I mean, I tell stories to my guys now. It's like, there were days it was me and a dishwasher. They're like, oh, come on, chef. And I'm like,
no, for real.
No, it was me and a dishwasher. Like, I refused to go bankrupt.
Yeah.
I had days like, I couldn't make payroll a couple times. I went to the bank, cried my eyes out, right? And by the grace of God, they gave me a temporary loan. They're like, don't fuck this up.
Yeah.
Right? This is on you.
Yeah. We're going to come take your stuff if you...
Right. And it was like, I got to figure it out. We're all talking about pivoting during COVID, right? But like, let me talk to you about pivoting.
So let me ask you that. That's a good point. Are some of those... I mean, so we're hopefully on the other side of this, pandemic thing. I mean, I think the hangover from it's going to last a while, right? But I think the worst of it is over, I hope. And do you feel that those early days struggling at Marketplace, trying to figure out how not to go bankrupt, set you up or gave you some skills to be able to navigate this shit show that we just kind of...
It did, man. It helped me... like I said, I was doing fucking rabbit trios, right? Tasting menus and look at me, right?
Yeah. I'm so fancy.
Yeah, look at my foam. Right? Fuck foams. Anyway, that's another story too. But so I was doing that and was like, this is not working. There's 2 people in the dining room. Like, the business model sucks. We have to change. And so at the time at Marketplace, I cashed in the rest of the chips I had, and we renovated, and we had a dining room in the front. We turned it into a large bar and lounge. We started doing, more small plate centric, live music. And we just made the vibe more like casual fine dining, right? Rustic, refined.
Yep.
And we did it, and we changed the menu to be more approachable. And it was like, it clicked.
Yeah.
And I think...
How long did that take? How long did the realization that you had to make some changes to like people starting to get it and you feeling like that?
It was not overnight.
Yeah.
No, I mean...
It never is.
No, I mean, I bought it in 2009. I'd say like 2013.
Okay. Did you start planning the shift straight away, like after you got in there, or was it like did you operate the business for a while and say, hey, I need to like kind of think about what I'm doing?
About a year and a half into it, we're like, we have to flip the script here. So we renovated, and then that's when things started to turn a little bit. We started coming out of the recession a little bit. Asheville started winning all these best beer city in the country. Tourists and journalists slowly started coming. Big breweries started coming. So there was a lot of variables that helped, but I think for me it was also like, I was broke, right? I work with some PR now, but like I never had a publicist.
Right.
Right. And I did everything. My wife called me an event whore. Somebody said, we have a charity event.
You're like, I'll do it.
I'm there.
Yeah.
Right. Hey, Food and Wine Festival. Hey, I'm there. Right. Like whatever. I did it all. And I'd say that was part of the up and coming part, right? Like that's how I got out there and got our brand out. It was like, street hustler.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so fast forward, to pandemic now, right? It's like, I want to say it was easy, right? It fucking sucked for all of us.
It was not easy for anyone.
But I want to say I at least was equipped with the tools.
Yeah. You had experienced some harsh realities of the business early on that kind of helped you.
Well, that recession pivot for me, I think what it taught me was that, I can make some beautiful food. I can make Michelin style, high quality, beautiful executed food that I'll put a plate in front of you and it'll blow your mind.
Mm-hmm.
But does that pay the bills, right? Does that help me make payroll to pay my team that helps me to operate this amazing business? No. So like we have to give the people what they want.
Yep.
And I would say that's something that I really try to push now to my cooks is like, I want your ideas, but let's talk about, are people going to love it, right? Are they going to crave it and come back for it?
Yeah.
Right. And that's what the food we're trying to make.
Great. That brings up an interesting question and one that I've been thinking about a lot over the years, because like you said, we have similar kind of backgrounds. My background was super high end, fine dining, Michelin stuff. I don't cook that way at all now. I think sometimes I think that way. Like when I'm fantasizing about dishes or ingredients, like in my head, I'm thinking about them in that way. But like when I actually technically start to like play with the food, I never go down that road. Do you think that Michelin star focus, that kind of cooking, is slowing down? Do you think it's becoming? That used to be. In the early 90s, that was what, that's what validated a great chef, right? Was James Beard, Michelin stars, 5 diamonds, all that stuff. I guess what I'm trying to find out from you is like, what are your thoughts on that whole system? Do you think that that's still important, or do you feel like it's less important and kind of moving away from that kind of thing?
Oh man, that's a deep.
It is a deep one, but it's one I want to know honestly because I've been thinking about it a lot and I have my own kind of feelings.
I have a lot of feelings and thoughts on that. But I think it's important.
Yeah.
But I think the system needs reworked for Michelin and for James Beard.
In what way?
It's been a bunch of good old boy white guys, in their long white aprons winning awards, right? Is their food delicious? Hell yeah, it's amazing. They're putting amazing technique together and they're doing mind-blowing cuisine, right? And I believe in it. And I think that strive for perfection is important, but at what cost, right? How are we treating our people? What are we doing? What are we doing to ourselves? We get into a whole conversation on what sustainability is, right? Like, something I learned the hard way too, right? If you want to promote sustainability, great food and, take care of your staff, but if you're not being sustainable to yourself, are you walking the walk?
Yeah.
Right. And so I feel like in that kind of Michelin, James Beard circle, there's a lot of like, just kill yourself, right? To get to the highest level.
Right.
I certainly think if you want to be the best in any profession you're in, it's not a 40-hour work week.
Right.
Right.
You're putting in the time and the effort. You're working over hours, after hours, all the time on that goal.
And again, back to the, you got to do something 10,000 times. That doesn't happen overnight, right? If you want to be an expert at it. So I think it takes time and it takes effort, but at what cost? I know earlier on in my career, I killed myself. I didn't celebrate holidays. I would work. There were things, family, friends that I just said, I can't be there. Weddings, funerals, I didn't attend because I was working, because it was the most important thing in my universe.
Yep.
I would say age helps you
learn that lesson.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
But I think that's probably one of my big qualms with like the Michelin James Beard stuff is that, at what cost does that come to not just the chef and the executives at the restaurant, but also to the team that's helping you achieve those goals.
So it's kind of like, see if I'm getting this right. That accolade system is kind of at odds with your feelings about sustainability and kind of like...
I chased all of it for a long time.
Yeah.
Right. I told a few people along the way to go fuck themselves. Probably not a good thing. You know, I'm a very diplomatic, down to earth person, but you know, I was taught, you know, there's a certain point that if somebody disrespects you enough, throw the gloves off. So,
yeah,
you know, is what it is sometimes.
Yeah.
But I've done a lot of the James Beard stuff. I've done some of the Michelin stuff, and like, I think it's amazing. But for me, I was like, you know, do I need to kill myself for that, right? Do I need to go down that path? You know, I started to for a while. Children was probably my big catalyst to say, you know what, does it really matter?
Right.
I need to put money in the bank. I need to take care of my team. And that was probably a pivot for me to like not be in the kitchen 80 hours a week, to like, hey, hire a chef de cuisine, hire sous chefs. You can't micromanage.
Right.
You know, it's a little intimate with our family, but I have 2 children, both of them have hearing loss. You know, I had been asked to be on TV and Chop Chef and Chopped, and I turned them down because it was like, I need to be here with my family. And that was, you know, it was from somebody that was like micromanager, type A chef earlier on in my career. It was a tough pill to swallow.
Right.
But it was the best thing I ever did.
Good for you.
It helped me slow down and be a little more sustainable to myself.
Good.
To say, you know what, I don't need to work every Friday night, right? Like I can be home with my wife, with my kids, you know, being more of the person I should be.
How do you manage that with your teams that are running your restaurants now? So, I mean, obviously you're still involved. You're still there. I mean, you're we're in Charlotte today. So Haymaker's here.
Right.
Haymaker opened in 2018.
2018. Yeah.
Okay. And it's a similar style food to Market.
It was going to be Marketplace Charlotte.
Yeah.
And I said, we don't need more. We don't, you know.
Yeah, I don't want a chain.
Yeah, exactly. So we said, oh, it'll be easy. We'll create a whole new brand.
Yeah. We live and we learn.
But yeah, no.
So it's like the same kind of model.
Seasonal, farm to table. You know, casual fine dining. The menu evolves based on what we can get from our farms.
So how do you implement that sustainability, that longevity, that kind of, you know, protect your staff from, like, I feel an obligation to kind of protect my staff from the mistakes that I made as a young cook, like that ego driven, like I'll do whatever it takes to be successful. I'll do whatever it takes to get the stars. And I feel like I have to kind of like,
it's systems for sure.
Yeah.
You know, that's something I had the chef tell me once before. He said, you know, you need to work in the business, but there's a certain point you need to work on the business. And how do you get from working in the business to on the business? Structure and systems, right? He said, you know, mise en place, right? You know,
100%.
Come in, mise en place your station. You know, my prep list is game tight. I come in, I've got it all timed out. I knock it out. Let's go. Time for service. He said, apply that mentality, you know, on the macro level, right? Holistically to your operation. You know, make your employee manuals, make your SOPs, make your you know, standardize your recipes, right? Do all these things, and it's like, these are all things, I can figure that out. But when I finally did it, and then I trained managers, I was like, holy shit, like, this works really well.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay, so I'm going to interject real quick. Any of my chefs or staff that are listening right now, I'm not just busting your balls. This is a thing. Okay.
Yeah, you know, structure is important, right? You know, we don't want to be corporate per se.
Yep.
But, you know, systems are important.
The systems are there for a reason.
Well,
you know, like they work.
People want to know what's expected, right? And we don't know what's expected. I feel like as an owner and operator, I'm not doing my job. Right. Because otherwise you just come into work and flounder. It's like, hey, this is how we open. This is how we close. Here are our recipes.
Yep.
I want people's input, you know, to make it fluid and make it organic, you know, for lack of better words, right? But we also have the structure that creates a system that makes it delicious and makes you as an employee, give you an opportunity to have a safe place to work and have a structured professional place to work.
Yep.
You know, we all know, the analogy of like the kitchen is like a pirate ship, right?
Mm-hmm.
People are yelling and cursing and things are on fire and you kind of feel like you're floating a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Been there, done that.
Yeah.
But like, I'm trying to turn it into a cruise ship.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's the difference.
How's that going? Do you feel like, how do you feel, where are you at with that transition from pirate ship to cruise ship?
Oh, I think, I don't know if we're like, we're not, Norwegian cruise lines at this point, but like, we're small yacht.
Yeah.
Cruising along.
You're a charter boat.
Yeah.
You're not the Four Diamond version.
Yeah. And that's going well though, man. I think, we have really good teams. I think culture is important. I know that every company, it's about the culture, right? But I think that something that is advantageous to our restaurants is that, we are really trying to walk the walk with local sourcing and sustainability. There's certainly a lot of restaurants all across the country that say, hey, we're farm to table.
Yep.
And they've got local goat cheese on the menu and the big box truck rolls up at 6 a.m. and they're cutting bags open.
Yep.
We're getting,
I see it all the time. It drives me nuts.
We're getting fresh produce and fruits in and local meats and seafood, and we're preserving and doing the things that my grandmother did, right, to honor their food, but to create food that's delicious and sustainable for our community.
Yeah, I made a conscious decision pretty early on in the 5 church part of our development that I was not going to do the farm to table thing. I wasn't going to, promote that on my menu, because by the time I opened 5 Church, I had already I'd met Sammy. I was already deep down that that hole of like sustainability and locality and all that I just believed that that's the way it should be, right? I shouldn't have to convince my guests that that's how I'm cooking. And I used a lot of like the PR stuff, like you were saying, you're kind of a media whore. Like that's important when you're a startup. You got to get out there. You got to like get in front of anybody who will listen, so that at least they're just familiar with who you are. And that's what I did with that, right? Like I'd go on, Kristen Miranda's thing. Like she's a great friend now, but then, we didn't know each other, but I would go on all the time and talk about whatever farm and how we were approaching things. And I just wanted it to be understood that that's the way you should be doing it. Like I don't have to say, this or that or local or whatever. Like I just want people to know that that's indicative of our brand. That's who we are.
For sure. And I would say for me, a lot of that happened organically because the marketplace is, it's one of the OG farm to table restaurants in the country.
Yeah. And by the time you took it over, it was already,
it's 44 years old.
So it's like 30 years old when I
bought it.
Yeah. So that was well established.
So for me, I thought, that is part of our brand, and we actually are doing it, and that's who we need to be projected as. And that, that became part of my brand as well for who I am as a chef. Yeah. It's been an interesting ride through that too. I had a lot of people say, "Oh, you're so sustainable," and I'm thinking, I'm just a redneck from West Virginia trying to cook like my grandmother did.
Yeah.
Right. But they were sustainable before that was even a buzzword.
Right. And so let's talk about that for a minute, because you were talking about this earlier, and it was kind of going around in my head. I was thinking about how farm to table, it's a label for how people are cooking.
When Papa John's is putting commercials out that say, "We know our farmers."
Yeah. I'm not buying it.
Right.
Sorry, bro. Yeah. Not buying it.
No, me either.
That's marketing. So we've got guests that will come and pay a premium for the food that we put out because we are actively sourcing. We're trying, we're meeting the farmers. We're going to the markets. We're working for local agriculture and stuff. That's how we cook, and they'll pay top dollar for it. People have been eating this way in rural West Virginia since West Virginia existed. That's just how it was done.
For sure.
And it got me thinking, like, would those people appreciate what we're doing? Would the mom and pop farmers in rural West Virginia or North Carolina, do they appreciate, other than the fact of like pushing local agriculture and supporting their livelihood by buying produce locally and doing all that, but celebrating that kind of cooking?
I think so.
Yeah.
We certainly are cooking things different than my grandmother did.
Right.
But there's a lot of recipes that I'm doing very similar to what she did.
Yeah.
We're just presenting it in a way that is a little more thoughtful.
Yeah. Using some chefy tools too.
Yeah.
We got some tools that they didn't have to maybe.
Well, and I think that's something, and this is a sales pitch here in a second, right? But,
I love it.
Yeah. But about thoughtful cooking.
Yep.
Which is a book that I'm working on right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's something that, like, as a chef, you get to a point where you're trying to, like, figure your palate out.
Yep.
I've been wanting to write a book for a long time. I have an English major, and I was like, okay, I need to use this at some point other than waxing and waning, writing menus.
Yep.
And I felt like got to the point where, like, okay, I think I know what my story is. And I think that, again, similar how we cook, but is being thoughtful about how you cook, right? Thinking about where food comes from, thinking about, about voting with your fork, right?
Yep.
Because the choices you make, not only as a chef, but an eater, have a huge impact on the planet around us.
Mm-hmm.
And
the hospitality and restaurant business. What kind of restaurants are in your community?
Right. But then also just like, the future, right? I've gotten into sustainable seafood as an advocate for that,
Mm-hmm.
And I'm from the mountains, where there's trout and, bass, right?
Right.
But I've noticed, like, when I lived in Charleston, as a great example, years ago, we'd order black grouper from our fishmonger.
Yep.
Would say, hypothetically, hey, we need 30 pounds of grouper. We'd get one 30-pound grouper.
Right.
Right. Years went by and it was like 30 pounds of grouper. Now I got two 15-pound groupers.
Yep.
And then now it's, multiple fish, right? As the years go by, and like as a chef, thinking and asking questions and critically thinking, it's like, why is that happening?
Mm-hmm.
And it's happening because we're overfishing.
Yep.
Right. And so that kind of, led me into thinking, like, as chefs, we have a really powerful opportunity to help curate the food system.
Mm-hmm.
Not only in being a leader and member in our communities, but also in what we're doing to help, make the planet a better place. And I'm not a Greenpeace hippie, Jamie, but like, I like I said, redneck from West Virginia.
Yep.
I'm just, look at what my grandparents did. They did things on their farm because, if they fertilized their farm and raped the soil, they weren't able to feed themselves the next year.
Right.
Right. And to me, that's just being thoughtful.
Yep.
Right. And taking care of the planet around us. And so, with the book, I'm finally to a point where I'm like, okay, I'm going to tell my story about why I think this is important.
Yep. And so that's the book then.
That'll be the book.
Yep.
It'll be a seasonal cookbook with, with some stories about sustainability, sustainable food systems. Again, I don't want to beat people over the head with Greenpeace.
Sure.
But I want to be able to tell a story of that as eaters. Our thoughtfulness and our choices really do affect the world around us.
Yep. How important do you think your voice is now? You touched on it a minute ago. As chefs, we have an opportunity, especially now. I mean, it baffles my mind sometimes how, like, kind of celebrity status we get. Like, I get approached in the grocery store all the time,
Sure,
and stuff, and it's kind of weird. Like, I'm used to it now, but I don't. Like, we're just dudes. Like, we're just dudes that are into food.
Yep.
Like, you know what I mean? And this is our way of, creating a livelihood and telling our story and touching people and things like that. But today, because of the Food Network, because of Top Chef and all these other things, chefs have this celebrity status sometimes, and people really look up to them.
Oh my God, you're the guy that beat Gordon Ramsay.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, I saw you on Top Chef.
Yeah.
And it's like,
I want to talk about Gordon Ramsay, by the way. I was going to get to that. But you have this voice now. You have this platform,
and it's important we use it in a good way.
Yeah.
And I really believe in that. I think that as leaders to our teams, it's important that we use our voice to create a professional work environment, right? But as leaders in our community, I think it's important that we help make good choices. I've been asked to get into politics before, run for city council or do things like that. I'm like, no way. Like, I don't like politics, but I like policy.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's where you can make change is through policy. Things like, the Farm Bill, the Magnuson-Stevens Act for sustainable seafood, the Childhood Nutrition Reauthorization Act, to get more funding for schools to have healthier, better school lunches for kids.
Yep.
Those are things that I'm like, that's actively part of what I can participate in as a chef, and I can make change, and it's pretty powerful. About halfway through.
Okay.
So we just finished some lifestyle shoot for summer, which was fun.
Cool.
Got a few more things to do, and hopefully we'll have it completely submitted by end of the year, early 23, and then unfortunately publishing takes a minute.
Yeah.
So it will probably be out either late 23, early 24.
So the book is something I'm super interested in. I'm talking with a publisher myself. I'm thinking about doing. I think that all chefs somewhere in their like the caverns of their ego and career dream of having a cookbook,
For
right?
sure.
Especially with the way cookbooks are now. You just beautiful photography, just gorgeous prize books. So I've always had that kind of dream too. I'm starting to think about doing it. What's the process been like for you? How are you approaching it? Are you doing it all yourself? The material? Are you doing all the photography? Are you doing all the writing? Are you testing all the recipes yourself? Or are you using, how's that working for you?
I've been working this for 6-7 years.
Okay.
I've sent proposals for the same book for years and was told it wasn't my time. Mm-hmm. Finally sent it in this past year and was said, "Hey, this is your time." I thought, the fuck? Okay.
Why now?
Yeah, why now?
This isn't the best time for me.
Right. But I'm like, all right, let's go all in.
Yep.
And so, I've got a really amazing photographer friend, Johnny Autry in Asheville. He's done a ton of cookbooks and just a badass photographer. Been a friend for a long time. Mm-hmm. We've talked about doing a cookbook together for years. But he's like, I can't write the book for you. You got to get the proposal accepted. Mm-hmm. So we did, and he said, let's do this. So, it's going to be a beautiful book.
Cool.
Yeah. But the writing, I have an English degree, so
so you want to do the writing.
And I'm sure, as you're seeing on your podcast today, the bullshit flows.
Yeah,
so,
sure. Yeah, I love it.
So I'm writing the book.
So the
myself.
editing's gonna be the hard part.
Getting
the writing done won't be the hard part. It's be the editing.
Exactly. So and the recipes. Fortunately, I've been cooking for a long time. I've got a number of restaurants. How many standardized recipes do you have in your repertoire?
A lot.
But
So, which ones are going to tell the story that you want to tell?
And I think that's also the thoughtful cooking, the cooking in the moment, right? Cooking seasonally is that I've got all these different recipes, and it's just creating the formula to put it all together.
How many recipes are you going to have in your book, do you think? Roughly?
Probably about 100.
100. So that's pretty substantial. Like that's a lot of material.
That's a lot of material, yeah.
Do you have your outline? Are you do you know what the recipes are going to be now? Or are you still kind of working through that? Or
yeah, there may be a couple things I may tweak, in terms of an ingredient that I couldn't find for a photo shoot, so I'll end up having to tweak the recipe a little bit.
Right, but you have the nuts and bolts of like the dishes that you want to tell the stories.
Yeah, I'd say that was the hard part, was writing the proposal, architecting out the whole book, knowing the recipes, knowing what
what dishes you wanted to highlight and stuff.
Exactly, and what the story is we're going to tell. Mm-hmm. That took a lot of time to curate, but I feel like at this point the book is kind of writing itself.
Yeah, good.
Which is good.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So you're halfway through. Took you about 6 years to get to this point.
Yeah.
You think you're going to wrap it up by the end of the year?
I hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm actually next week going to go back home to West Virginia. My folks have a place in Greenbrier County.
Cool.
And I'm going to go hole off for a week and try to bang out the rest of it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool.
But I think that's also something that takes, like, you got to just like put the blinders on and just go in, get in your own head.
So what's your process for that? Do you have to pull out of the ops for a minute and like kind of stay away from the restaurants for a second? Lock yourself in a
I tell my team, don't call me, I'll call you.
Yeah.
If it's burning down, here's a number for the insurance company.
Yeah. Don't call me for that either. You're going to mess with my mojo.
Yeah, man. Yeah. It's just, taking the time to, again, go on that vision quest. Right.
Yeah.
And I think that, you need to be able to clear your brain, mm-hmm. right? If you're thinking about, finances, you're thinking about, menu change, right? Like, you're not going to focus.
Right. You're working on a couple restaurants right now too.
Yeah, that's it. When it rains, it pours.
So why do we do this to ourselves? Like, there's always many irons in the fire, right? Like, it's like,
I want to retire one day, chef.
Yeah, I heard that. Me too. Me too. So how's that coming along? What is your plan for that? And what are the concepts going to be?
Yeah, so it's funny. As we were opening Haymaker, I got approached by a friend of mine who does the food service management for North Carolina Zoo.
Okay.
And he said, hey, we want you to open a restaurant at the zoo. And I'm like, Marketplace Restaurant.
Yeah, you're like,
do you know who I am? Tongue in cheek, right? But they said, we want you to open a marketplace cafe. And I thought, it's the zoo in Asheboro, like, what if it rains? What if it's winter and it's snowing? All this like farm to table fresh produce, it's not very sustainable. We're going to have a lot of food waste.
Right.
I started talking with the folks there, and I said, I'm open to collaborating on a restaurant. But like, let's talk about who comes here. It's like church groups, school groups, families, children. Mm-hmm. I said, I got kids. They like chicken tenders and French fries.
Yeah.
I said, let's do fried chicken with a purpose. And they said, oh, we like that. Like local source chicken, local dairy, eggs, produce, but small curated menu. And it's funny. They said, what do you want to call it? I said, I don't fucking know. Billy D's fried chicken. And
they were like, that's perfect.
They were like, dude, that's got a ring to it.
Nice.
It's been good, man. We've put on our brunch menu at Haymaker and used that as kind of a testing opportunity. Put on the brunch menu at Marketplace. Keep winning best fried chicken sandwich, both cities.
Nice.
The zoo is like been doing great.
Yep.
And so one of my COVID pivots was like, I love fine dining, but I'm looking at like the bandwidth I'm able to create off the quick service model. Mm-hmm. It's the same philosophy we're putting into our fine dining restaurants, locally sourced, sustainable. We're using chefy techniques, but at the end of the day, it's fried chicken.
Yeah.
Right. And people love it, and it's really taken off. And it's part of my ego is like, fuck, I put so much blood, sweat, and tears in these fine dining restaurants, and this fried chicken concept is like going bonkers.
Yep.
But it's cool, man.
Yeah.
So we actually have one we're getting ready to open at Elon University,
okay.
Hopefully here in the next month. And then we're looking to open one at Wake Forest University also.
Nice.
I think that's the thing I've looked at is like, cook for the masses, right?
Right. Where are they at?
Right.
Where are the masses?
College campuses.
Yeah. Nice. Smart.
And so working on that, and I'm hoping to keep building that and hopefully get to a point where I can start franchising it out.
Yeah. Cool.
And then
that's a whole nother ball of wax. You say that now. Okay, we're circling back in a few years, and I'm going to ask you about the franchising thing.
You'll be like, Chick for who?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Because, I mean, that's going to be a whole nother like level of red tape and shit to deal with, and especially something that has a purpose like that, right? Like, it's not just a good fried chicken sandwich. Like, you're trying to stand for something.
Exactly.
And then when you franchise that out, like how do you control that? I don't want to think about it.
It's a lot. Well, and then to throw more fuel in the fire, I've got another concept we're rolling out this year also. It's called Little Gem.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's going to be another quick service concept, local source, sustainable, but like rice bowls, salad bowls, a couple sandwiches.
Are you partnering up with any farmers that to do this, or is it going to be it'll be local within some radius that you
Yeah, most everything will be within about 200 miles of the restaurants.
Okay. But you don't have specific farmers that you're like, hey, I'm going to need X heads of greens or whatever.
Not at this point, no.
Yeah.
A lot of, I think, as with working with small farms and smaller demographics, you kind of have to pick and choose and put the math together, right, to make sure you got enough inventory.
Yep. Yeah, you can't rely on any row of anything.
Right.
You never know what's going to happen.
Right. Climate change is real.
Yeah, for sure.
But I'd say that's been really fun, kind of working on those different concepts.
What's your timeline for Little Gems?
Hopefully this fall.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're pretty far along on it.
Oh yeah. I mean,
where's that going to be?
That will actually be at the North Carolina Zoo.
Okay, cool.
So largest zoo in North America, 2,000 acres. Billy D's is at kind of the backside of the zoo, and then Little Gem will be right at the front entrance.
Are you going to be able to use any of like the produce and stuff that's going out as like the feed for the animals? So there's like zero waste.
Hopefully we don't even have that much waste.
Yeah.
We will compost all those things.
Yeah.
But I think with the animals at the zoo, they're on pretty strict diets.
You can't just throw the greens back there and be like, here you go.
Well, it's funny. That's, with the Billy D's concept, initially I was going to do bone-in fried chicken.
Yep.
But at the zoo, you can't have bones because if some kid throws their drumstick into the monkeys,
I didn't even
monkey
think
chokes
of that.
on it. Like,
that's a good point.
It's a pretty big lawsuit.
Yeah, I would say.
But it's actually kind of helped curate the brand,
right,
which has been great too.
Oh, interesting. I didn't even think of that. Cool. Well, we're at an hour 20. Is there anything else you want to talk about? I feel like we've covered a lot of ground.
Man, it's always just good catching up. You know,
Yeah.
I love, as you can tell, I can blow hot air and talk food all day. It's,
Yeah.
you know, like you, really passionate about what I do.
Yeah.
Passionate about local food and excited, you know, about what's ahead. I think, you know, the past few years, right, we're just trying to stay the course. And I feel like I'm finally starting to come up for air a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm pretty excited about what's ahead. You know,
Cool.
Last few years were a little, you know, there were a few dark spots along the way.
Yeah.
But
I'm actually glad we didn't talk about those today, because that's kind of been a theme with a lot of the guests, and for us as a group too, is you know, this has been definitely, the story has been about growth and all that, and that's really exciting that we didn't even touch on that. The black hole that has been the past 2 years.
positive mental outlook, man.
Yeah.
You know, when you're on that vision quest, like, there are speed bumps and it's inevitable.
Yeah.
But, you know, put your head down, wake up, the sun is shining, weather is sweet. Let's go get this money.
I like it. Go get it. You got to chase it down. I love it. All right, Chef. Thanks for sharing your story, man. I'm really excited about the book, the new concepts. I'll definitely follow up with you and stuff. Keep track of that stuff, and maybe we can sit down again once you kind of get the book launched, and we'll talk about how that. I want my signed copy, and we can maybe we'll do a little cook off.
That sounds good.
We didn't talk about the cook off.
Oh well,
damn it. Let's talk about the cook off. I want to talk about how was. So you did a little thing.
I did a little thing. Beginning of the pandemic.
Nat Geo.
Yep. I kept getting these emails in like April and May of 2020.
Yep.
Hi, Chef. We'd like you to be on Gordon Ramsay's TV show. You know, and it was from just somebody at Gmail.
Yep.
And I'm like, spam. Like, we're in lockdown globally.
Right.
Beginning of June, I got a phone call and they said, we've been trying to reach you for 2 months. Do you want to do this TV show? Like I mentioned before, you know, I'd been asked to do some other big national TV shows, and just I've done some stuff along the way that's been good, but it was never really my thing.
Right.
You know, when you're about to feel like you're about to lose it all, though, I was like,
I'll do whatever.
I'm your Huckleberry. Let's do this.
Yeah.
And so, so I signed up for it, and it was like, hey, you're going to be an ambassador for Appalachia and Western North Carolina, and you're going to take Gordon Ramsay, you know, most famous chef in the world, around, through your region, showcasing the best of the best. And I knew, you know, the show's on Nat Geo, so I knew it wasn't going to be a bunch of pomp and circumstance and fluff, right?
Yep.
And so I was like, wow, this is going to be sweet. And then, you know, I signed my contract and got everything going. They're like, oh, and by the way, there's a cook-off at the end of the show with Gordon. And I'm like, oh, y'all got me.
You thought you were just going to be hiking through the woods picking ramps?
Right.
Come on.
And so, so it was cool, man. You know, I redneck from West Virginia. I've got a big lifted up truck with a winch bumper and all that. You know, and beginning of the show, I take Gordon out, and he, you know, true Gordon Ramsay fashion, he rappels down this waterfall. You know, it's like makes an epic entrance.
Yeah.
He and I go fly fishing, which is pretty rad.
Yep.
And the folks in the show, you know, everything was unscripted, but they did say, you're gonna have a cook off. Beginning of the show, we'd like you to make a bet with Chef Ramsay, to kind of get the drama going.
Yep.
They had no idea what I was going to bet. And they just said, you guys figure it out.
Yeah.
And so we were fishing, and we said, look, Chef, you know, you're going to need a truck to get around the region. Why don't you use mine? It's a big lift up truck, winch bumper, mud tires, like it's yours.
Yeah.
But I said, look, we got a cook off at the end of the show. Why don't we make a little wager? If I win the cook off, you fly my family and I to London and feed us at your namesake restaurant. You know, Michelin 3-star, 20 courses. It'll be amazing. If you win, you get the truck.
Nice.
And he said, let's do it.
Come on. Is the bet legit?
It was legit.
Really?
Although I still haven't got my invitation to London yet.
What?
I know. Gordon, do you hear?
Yeah, if you're listening, Gordon's not listening. No, he's not. But maybe one of his people
If your publicist is listening.
Yeah. Yeah, we want that dinner. Can I go with you?
Yeah, man.
Yeah. How many people are going on this dinner?
Well, we didn't get that in the fine print.
Okay,
so he goes around the region. You know, he makes moonshine. He goes foraging for mushrooms. He goes to meet with indigenous Cherokee to learn about hominy and whatnot. And then he and I meet on top of a 6,000-foot mountain and have a cook-off over a wood fire, and
nice.
And I beat his ass.
Nice, good job, Chef.
Way to represent. Love you, mean it, Gordon.
Yeah, way to represent Appalachia.
Yeah, man. There you go.
I nailed it. I told you by the end I would get it.
Nailed it. Awesome. But so it was cool, man. You know, we had the cook-off, and he said, nobody's beaten me yet. And I was like,
Nice.
You know, and honestly, at the time, I was so shell shocked with COVID and what was happening. I was like, I thought I was going bankrupt.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that was cool. And then, you know, almost a year later, the show came out, and it was like
It aired just the beginning of the month, right? Like, was it June or July? Was it the beginning of July?
In July, last year.
Oh, last year. Sorry. Yeah.
And so it aired, and it was like, I mean, I've gotten a lot of good press along my career.
Yep.
And I feel very grateful for all that. This happened, and like, I've never had this much PR in my life. Like, it just blew up. And,
Awesome.
You know, social media following, and you know, articles every day, and going on the local news, and you know, stories in Forbes magazine. And it was like, holy crap! Like, wow! Like, TV is real.
It is real.
Yeah, I mean, I know preaching the choir here with Top Chef, but like, it's not the end all be all in my career, but
right.
Damn if it didn't open some pathways up. So
for sure.
Thank you, Gordon.
Yeah. Thank you, and thank you for winning and representing our community and stuff, and getting that stuff out there. It's important.
It was cool. I think the power move in the cook-off was I took a Spanish ham stand and put a Benton's 26-month age country ham on it.
Nice.
Again, redneck from West Virginia. I've done an ice luge or two in my life. We cut a V channel in the ham, and then I luged some 14-year-old bourbon down it for my friends at Smooth Angler.
Oh, nice.
And I made Gordon take a shot of it.
Oh, and that's so perfect.
I think it threw him off his game.
Yeah, he was he wasn't on his A game. Nice. Well done.
Yeah. But I'll tell you though, he was an amazing human being.
Yeah.
You know, we because of the COVID sanctions when we were filming, I got to spend a fair amount of time with him.
Yeah.
And he's like a big kid. I mean, the guy's in his 50s, but like, I mean, just all over the place, ADD all the time. Mm-hmm. But he took a lot of time to sit down and talk with me, which was pretty cool. You know, his restaurants were going through the same.
Yeah.
Right. And he's obviously at a much higher caliber and a zillion restaurants and different, you know, cash flow, et cetera. But like they were still going with shutdown.
Yep.
They were at the time we're filming, all of England was locked down.
Wow.
So his restaurants there were closed.
Yeah. So I mean, he was probably stuck in the U.S. probably at that point too. Yeah.
Yeah. And so he mentioned to me, we were talking. I was kind of busting balls, and I was like, "Are you really an asshole?" Like all the stuff on TV.
Yeah.
He said, "Oh, William is like, watch my British shows. I'm cheeky but down to earth." He said, "You know, man." He said, "You Americans love drama."
Yeah.
He said, "Drama pays the bills."
Yeah.
I said, "Heard."
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the reality is like, he's probably not all that different in the kitchen than any one of us, right? Like somebody disrespects a dish or an ingredient or whatever, you lose your shit,
right?
You know, but when it's fun, and it's how we enjoy ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, I think probably similar to any chef earlier in his career, you know, you haven't had those 10,000 experiences, right?
Right.
So you're trying to figure it out, and when things happen, you don't have the skill set or the, you know, or the knowledge or the lexicon to be professional, right? Maybe you're a little more.
Also, let's not forget that his mentor was Marco Pierre White.
Right.
Okay. Who was like probably the most vicious chef of all time.
But I mean, he was honestly, a sweetheart.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's
really
great.
down to earth, and like took time to chat, and like it was a good dude.
Yeah. Awesome.
I'm still waiting on my trip to London, Gordon.
I hope you get it soon, and we'll talk about it on the podcast when you come back.
That sounds good, man.
We'll do a little critique.
Yeah, man.
Awesome. Thanks, Chef.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me, man.
All right. Talk to you soon.
Yeah.